Alright, let's see if that does it. Can anybody see or hear me right now? Are we on? Let's see if this switched scenes properly. Let's see, not seeing anything yet.
Look at all those chickens.
It's telling me I'm on the right scene. There we go. Okay, excellent. Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to Paleontologizing. Just so good to have you here. My name is Danny Anduze. I'm a dinosaur paleontologist, and we're going to be seeing some dinosaur fossils and more today at the Tate Geological Museum at Casper College here in Casper, Wyoming. And behind me, we've got this lovely bronze Tyrannosaurus display here. And I think this is really pretty cool. On one side of it, we have a sculpt of the skeleton. This is not a cast, but a sculpt. And then on the other side, we have it coming to life, all fleshed out. Pretty nifty. That is pretty cool. Yeah. So welcome everybody. It's so good to have you here. Safarix, Science, Streams, Texas Cryptid, Hugin, Pocket Theremin. Welcome everybody. It is so good to have you here. Now this is an excellent museum. This is kind of one of the hidden gems here in Wyoming. So I'm so excited to be able to share it with you. I actually dropped by this museum on the way out here before my streaming rig was working. And yeah, got a lovely tour of the facility from JP, who is kind of the paleontologist head honcho here. Unfortunately, he is out in the field today, I've been told. And so we won't be able to see him or talk to him. And Russell Hawley, who is the education director here, whom I also spoke to last time, he is out sick today, unfortunately. So it's just going to be me. You're stuck with me today, everybody. I hope that's okay. Let me check my volume here. Let's turn that up, because I know the notifications are sometimes, the alerts are pretty loud. So we'll see if I can get my voice up to about the same level, so it's not so jarring when those alerts come on. I tried adjusting the volume on those last night, everybody. I tried for almost an hour. Nothing works. That functionality just doesn't exist with Stream Elements, unfortunately. So yeah, anyway. But yeah, Athena Cat, Raptor Rapture, yours truly Swifty, and Grinspells, how are you doing? And Mudman, how are you? Welcome to Paleontologizing. This is pretty awesome. Essence of Rex Bronze by Chris Navarro, dedicated August 2014. Pretty neat. So let's go ahead and journey into the museum. So Casper College is a pretty small school, but they've got a lovely museum here. I mean, I guess this is kind of quintessential Wyoming. Small population, but lots and lots of fossils, and pretty remarkable in that regard. So let's go in and see some of them. Alright, here we are. And cross your fingers that the signal holds. This is a brick building. Alright. And here we are. Very cool. So there, front and center, is D the mammoth. We've been talking a lot about mammoths recently. So you might recognize this as another Columbian mammoth, also known as an imperial mammoth, found right here in Wyoming. Yeah. Very cool, very cool. Good morning to you too, Books Brews. It's great to have you. Yeah, very cool. Let's take a look at her real quick. Let's see if let's start here. So yesterday in South Dakota, we talked all about Columbian mammoths and saw about 50 of them at the mammoth site in Hot Springs. And here is a mounted, pretty much full-grown Columbian mammoth, also known as an imperial mammoth. Pretty awesome. Yeah. So Dee was discovered in 2006, 40 miles north of Glen Rock, Wyoming. He was 65 to 70 years old when he died, around 11,600 years ago. At the time of his death, Dee was about 4.2 meters tall at the shoulder and weighed approximately 10,000 kilograms. That's 22,000 pounds, for those of you who aren't super familiar with metric. He would have eaten more than 320 kilos or 700 pounds of sedges and grasses a day as an adult. So like we've been saying, mammoths were grazers, so they're mostly eating grass and sedge and stuff like that. As opposed to mastodons, which have got those high crown teeth. They're mostly browsers, eating leaves and shrubs and things like that. Yeah, and you can see those big flat teeth there in his jaw. Kind of poking out there. A little bit difficult to spot, but hopefully you can see it. Yeah, pretty neat. And yeah, this is
to the
isn't this a
global
beautiful
and serious
setup?
game of paleontology.
Yeah. Yeah, male Columbian mammoths, like Dee, probably roamed this area alone. However, he may have joined a herd of females and their offspring during plentiful times or mating seasons. Recent observations of male elephants indicate that occasionally males will band together and form a herd. It is possible that male mammoths could have formed bachelor herds similar to those of African elephants today. Yeah, we were talking about that yesterday, too. Take a look at that. And so much of this looks like genuine bone. That femur there, you can see how that's all genuine. You can see the two-part epoxy there in those cracks holding that together. The tib and fibula right there look like casts, but I'm kind of astonished at how much of this looks like it's real. Maybe they have a diagram here so we can see how much of him is the actual fossil. Oh. Mammoth teeth. It doesn't look like it, so we'll have to just decipher it ourselves. Pretty cool. Here are some mammoth tusks here. Interesting. What? Discovered in 2006, Dee's short tusk is 1.3 meters or 4 feet long. It is about 1/3 the length of his other tusk. This tusk is covered in acrylic, which keeps it stabilized and is also what gives the tusk its glossy sheen. The smooth end of Dee's tusk indicates that it was broken off while he was still alive, and that he continued to use it. Interesting. So that is not something post-mortem. This is actually from during his life. That broken tusk right there happened while he was alive. Pretty interesting. It's all blunted, so it means he would have been using it. Interesting stuff. Yeah. And in this photo, you can see the conical cone-shaped growth in the other end of the small woolly mammoth tusk on the left. The sun would have seated in the mammoth tusk socket, and is where all the new cones of dentin grew. Interesting. Oh, very cool. It almost reminds me of like a fossilized tree stump or something, the way that it grows out from a central point like that. Very cool. Very, very cool. And here is the left ilium from this mammoth, is it? This is the ilium, which is the large fan-shaped part of the pelvis. So, yeah, those big old bones at the top of the hips right there are the ilia. You can actually feel those in your own body. If you kind of run your hands up at the top of your hips, those are your iliac crests up there. This bone shows what is often referred to as the tool mark of discovery. The top layer of the bone was scraped away when it was struck by the bulldozer. And if you look at the section closest to you, you can see the exposed spongy interior bone. So there that is up there. And some of it in there too. So the tool mark of discovery, that's it's a nice way to put it. Yeah. Since these guys are from the Pleistocene, which is pretty recent, in the grand scheme of things, oftentimes they're found in kind of flat areas that are being excavated by bulldozers and backhoes and stuff like that for construction projects or for road building. This is a common theme in the discovery of a lot of mammoth and mastodon, giant ground lost skeletons, is Oftentimes they have like a chunk taken out of one of the bones from where a piece of heavy equipment ran into it. And that's how it was uncovered in the first place. Yeah. It seems like mammoths and mastodons and ground sloths and things like that are kind of discovered by happenstance, almost by accident, more often than things like dinosaurs, where we've got to go out to usually more remote areas, go out to the Badlands. Critters like this lived all over North America, and a lot of this, like Pleistocene alluvium sediment and stuff like that, is in places where people want to build. And so, with some regularity, construction crews will knock into
With
critters like
sincere
this, and that's how they're
appreciation
discovered.
and gratitude, thank you very much for the 100 bits.
What do they got in their King Kong?
Oh, and Cypher, thank you for the support. I appreciate that. This is really neat. Elephants, mammoths, and mastodons. Very cool. Yeah. Pretty neat. This is a lot of information here. This is really cool. This is, particularly neat for a college museum like this. I bet you students who are taking their geology and paleontology classes, they probably have lab assignments where they come into here and read the displays and get into the nitty-gritty details. Really cool to see. Yeah. Pretty cool. And this looks like artwork from Russell Hawley, who, apart from being the education director here at the museum, also is a paleo artist. In fact, you've probably seen some of his work before. I'll show you. Let's see. Here it is right here. I've seen this diagram a million times. And I was talking with him about this when I was here a few weeks ago. In the Hell Creek and Judith River formations, the late Cretaceous period, the end of the age of dinosaurs, we have a lot of sites that we call microsites. So that's where we've got microvertebrates. Lots of small critters that are leaving their bones, kind of like a nice sample platter of all the different vertebrates that were living in this environment. And this was in one of the papers that we used to use when we were talking with students about picking through these microfossils and identifying the different bits. This is a lovely illustration that Russell did that I've seen reproduced all over the place. Very, very cool. So a bunch of these different critters I've worked on, I've picked out of Matrix. Ricardostezia, champsosaurs, hypodont sharks, Lepisosteus, which is a gar. That's probably the most common element that we find, are the scales from those critters. And then more rare would be things like Scapherpeton, little salamandery guy, juvenile hadrosaurs, bones from baby dinosaurs. I don't see Amia in here, the bowfin. Maybe that doesn't show up in the Lance formation. But yeah, pretty cool. This is really neat stuff. Lovely diagram like that, showing you the diversity of the different critters that lived in that environment. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, and there you go, Golgan. Yeah, that is pretty cool. And what is digitigrade? I can show you, Will of the Winds. I can show you right here. So digitigrade just means that an animal walks on its toes. That's how it's.
On formal occasions, he's called Brontosaurus.
So in this case,
big fella, isn't he? 70 feet long. Tips the scales at a substantial 35 tons.
It's actually up in the air. There's a big fleshy pad that would go underneath that. So they walk on their toes, and most mammals do. There's only a few plantigrade mammals. There's us. There's other critters like bears. I think raccoons might also be plantigrade. Yeah, but most mammals, like this ancient killer pig here, this entelodont, they walk on their toes. So this is a wooden model skeleton along with a cast skull. But it'll do the trick. It'll still show us. Right there, you've got the heel that's up in the air. So this whole thing is the foot right there. And I think that's the calcaneum up top, and that's up in the air. Like right here. That makes sense. Yeah, cool. Yeah. And Durher, Toph. Oh yeah, we did talk about that yesterday with the. I wasn't going to dwell on that for today because we talked all about it yesterday. But the reason why it seems all of the mammoths from the Mammoth site in Hot Springs, South Dakota are male is because those were loners. They weren't with a herd. And just like in modern elephants, the males are the ones who tend to kind of range far and wide throughout an area. They get themselves into trouble. They do goofy things. So yeah, that's why we think that most of those were males. Well, all of them at that site are males as far as we could tell. Or I should say as far as those researchers can tell. I don't work on mammoths or anything. But yeah. And... But yeah. Cool stuff. And we've got some lovely minerals on display here. And again, this is just like perfectly set up for students to be able to come through and learn about this stuff for their geology classes. It's a beautiful example of a good college museum. Cool stuff. All right. Oh, and this is pretty neat too. This reminds me. What a neat periodic table. That is so awesome. A colleague of mine at Montana State, I met him like just before I ended up moving back to California. He invited me and a couple other paleontologist friends to his dad's house. His dad had a lot of money. He had this big, gigantic house near Bozeman, Montana. And on the wall, this wonderful display piece, and it was a periodic table, but almost every single element had an actual piece of that thing inside of it. So like for gold, for instance, there was a big gold nugget, and there was a sample of iridium right there for number 77, and everything on there, and the thing must have cost a fortune, but it was so cool. Really, really something that it ties together science and art in a really obvious way. It's kind of brute forcing it, but it was still really cool. Even if it wasn't subtle, it was really, really neat to see. And so this is pretty cool. Seeing all of these just like this, visual representations of these different elements. That's pretty cool. Now, in a museum like this, where you don't necessarily have the largest budget, you've got to think about how do I portray certain ideas and do it in a really effective visual way. That's a beautiful example of that. Giving people something to look at that's beyond just your regular plain text periodic table. You know, we've got a cool representation of the rock cycle here. All the stuff that's really neat for students to be able to see. Here's some reptiles from the White River Formation. Very cool. Oh, that's awesome. So we've got some, I guess, ancient relatives of Gila monsters. Some of the world's only venomous lizards. Those are some beautiful specimens. Holy cow. Neat stuff. Very, very cool. And here's an amphisbaenid skull and skeleton. That is so cool. Amphisbaenids are these, they're another kind of legless lizard, or maybe they're not completely legless, I forget. But if I recall correctly, they're a type of lizard that's become fossorial. So they burrow through the ground. They look like worms on the outside. Yeah. Oh, and there we go. They generally lost their legs. That's what I thought. I think I've seen pictures of them with super tiny legs. Some of them. But yeah. That's an ongoing theme in the fossil record, is that when creatures go fossorial, when they become burrowers, oftentimes they lose their limbs. It happened with snakes. It happened with lots of like legless reptiles before lizards or snakes evolved. It's happened like 11 times within lizards. So there's like 11 different lineages, something like that, of lizards that have lost their limbs when they become full-time burrowers. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Yeah. But yeah, anyway. Let's go ahead and shoot, everybody in chat, cool it, okay? We're having a nice time here. Oh, yeah. This is really, really neat. So ichthyosaurs, they look like that basically, if you're not familiar with them. They're kind of like a reptilian dolphin almost, although they evolved long, hundreds of millions of years before dolphins. I think the first ichthyosaurs show up in the fossil record in the early Triassic period, about 240 million years ago, 245, something like that, long time ago. And dolphins show up in the fossil record, probably 20 million years ago, something like that. Anyway, yeah. So that is an ophthalmosaurus right there, and this is the vertebral column of an ichthyosaur from right here in Wyoming. Beautiful stuff. And I think this is currently under study, and so hopefully this will get published on pretty soon. But man, that matrix that it's in looks pretty tough. So the matrix, that's our word for the rock that surrounds a fossil. And here, this is like limestone
Here's
or
something
shale.
stranger than science.
It is
Prehistoric fact.
pretty tough looking. Holy cow, this must have been a real pain in the butt to prep out using air scribes and stuff. Very cool, yeah. Pretty awesome. This would have been a big animal too. I mean, our vertebrae are what, like this big? Check out how big these are. This animal probably would have been about 20, 30 feet long. Like 10, maybe even 12 meters. Who knows? Pretty cool. Yeah. Yeah. And speaking of ichthyosaurs, let's take a look at a skull of one of these critters. Is this Baptanodon? Who is this? No, Ophthalmosaurus. Very cool. The Mayoworth ichthyosaur. Skull and lower jaw. One of 3 ichthyosaurs collected near Mayoworth, Wyoming in 2018. This is really recent. Holy cow. Normally it takes years and years for a fossil like this to go up on display, especially at a larger museum. That's one of the beauties of smaller, more agile museums like this one, is that you can put something on display pretty soon after you discover it. If you've got people who are working on it to prep it and everything. Yeah. This is the only one with the skull. The left side was buried at first, helping to protect and preserve it. Many bones from the missing right side of the skull were recovered in a jumble of other bones. Very cool. And it says that there are many teeth in here. Some of them are kind of floating in the matrix in between the jaws. Now you can see some of them there that are outside of the sockets, but they're still there in the jaws. So these guys have these long, thin jaws that they could use to kind of swipe from side to side and nab fishes, maybe. Or maybe they're just so long and narrow because that's a more streamlined shape for them to kind of, rush toward fishes directly. I betcha it's like a side swiping thing, though. Kind of like modern day marlin or swordfish or sailfish. They've got these long jaws like that. And some ichthyosaurs actually evolved that long before sailfish ever did. Some of them like, what is it called? Urinosaurus or something like that. There's one that has this ridiculously long rostrum, long and thin. So like its jaw and its nose are far longer than its lower jaw. So it's just kind of swimming around like this. And then presumably maybe swiping from side to side to stun fishes or squid, the critters that it's pursuing and eating. Yeah, pretty neat. A diagram right here showing what we have from this animal. Neat stuff. So there's the hyoid, one of the most delicate bones in a lot of critters' bodies. It's pretty remarkable that we have it here. Very cool. And here's some of those vertebrae. They've got these very distinct kind of hockey puck shaped vertebrae. They really remind me of fish vertebrae, which I suppose makes a lot of sense. They form this long, like semi-rigid column And then, I guess toward the tail, they become a bit more flexible. But up here, these probably are dorsals, I would guess. So they're vertebrae from the back, I would think. They're going to be a bit more rigid, because the torso needs to be nice and rigid. The tail, which sculls from side to side and propels the animal, that needs to be a lot more flexible. Yeah. Yeah. And are those orbits proportional? These animals had incredibly large eyes. So, Ophthalmosaurus, the name means eye lizard. And you can see why. I mean, take a look at that. So, eye socket, the sign says, Ichthyosaurs had the largest eyes of any creature past or present. Their eyes could measure up to 26 centimeters or 10 inches in diameter. And that should probably be revised now that we've got some super giant ichthyosaurs. We're starting to find bits and pieces of ichthyosaurs that are like absolutely enormous. Like Dean Lomax, who's an ichthyosaur paleontologist, he published on an ichthyosaur that may well have been blue whale sized, like approaching 30 meters. That animal would have had much larger eyes than 10 inches, we think. I don't know, I think. But yeah. Anyway, so ichthyosaurs probably did have the largest eyes of any creature that ever lived. Having larger eyes allows these creatures to see their prey even in the murky depths of the ocean. Very cool. So look at that eye socket. Just incredible. Wow. Primarily visual predators. Although, I think I read that in examining the brains of ichthyosaurs, they've got pretty big olfactory centers too. So they also would have had a pretty decent sense of smell. Yeah. That combined with these enormous eyes is really interesting. So yeah, primarily visual predators, I would guess. Unlike whales tend to have pretty small, beady eyes. They don't have particularly good vision. And the toothed whales, the odontocetes, actually have echolocation. So they can kind of see by using sound. Ichthyosaurs, we don't have any evidence that they could do that. They could see using their eyes. What do you think? Yeah. Very cool. And we've got the basioccipital right there, which is gone, removed for research, which again is exciting to see. This shows that this is like a living, breathing collection. There's actual science still ongoing here. These aren't just for display, Neat stuff. Very neat stuff. Yeah. Pretty cool. So above our ichthyosaur here is another oceanic predator with a different kind of skull and very different teeth. This is Basilosaurus. Now don't let the name fool you. This is not a dinosaur. It's not even a reptile. This is a mammal. This is a whale. So here's a reconstruction of what the animal may have looked like in life. Pretty neat. They still have these vestigial hind limbs there. These little useless legs still sticking out of their body. Which is cool. It's, it wasn't too long ago that these guys were walking around on land. Their ancestors were, at least. But take a look at those jaws. That's the closest we've been able to get to an ancient odontocete's jaws, I think, so far on this trip. And this is a cast, of course. It's a replica. But check out those big teeth in the back. So these teeth in the front, we might call these like raptorial teeth, kind of like the teeth of a sperm whale. Just kind of big and conical and not serrated or anything. Just there for kind of grabbing prey and holding it so it can't escape. And then those teeth in the back are the ones that are actually used for cutting up flesh, so it can be swallowed. Take a look at those. That is some pretty serious teeth. Basilosaurus, pretty neat animal. Pretty neat animal. Yeah. The name means king lizard, and when it was first found, it was thought to be a giant extinct reptile. Nowadays, obviously, we realize it's a whale. It was realized pretty early on that this critter was a whale. But yeah, pretty neat. Awesome stuff, yeah. Godzilla dorsal teeth. I like that Zuccotti, yeah. They are shaped kind of like Godzilla plates, or spikes, aren't they? Cool stuff. Very neat. Yeah. Now let's take a look. Ooh, we've got a big old turtle here. Was this here last time? Maybe it wasn't. I don't remember this. But that is a lovely painting of this gigantic turtle. Holy cow. I wonder if this is related to soft-shelled turtles, like trionychids and critters like that. Pretty awesome. That is the actual specimen right there. This is not a cast. This is not a replica. Those are the actual fossils. So you can see the sandstone that it was preserved in. And this is what we call inarticulation. So it didn't fall apart after it died. It's just still there. The bones preserved as they were in life. Pretty awesome. And there's the skull right there. Leaning off to the side. Craning to the side, I should say. Pretty neat. Pretty neat. Let's see, where's some information about this critter? Here we go. Ben's
Really
big turtle.
spectacular. Spared no expense.
Axostemes
Goldenek
vicina?
gifted
Question mark.
Ambervex a subscription.
This giant soft-shelled turtle
Goldenek
lived
gifted a tier
millions of
1
years
sub
ago
to
in a large
Ambervex.
freshwater river system in
They
what is
have
now the
given
Powder River Basin,
144 gift
right
subs
here
in
in
the
Wyoming.
channel.
Complete soft-shelled turtles are extremely rare. This may be one of the largest, most complete three-dimensionally preserved specimens of its kind. Though the shell is folded in half like a taco, this fossilized skeleton includes the skull, lower jaws, and most of the upper shell or carapace, and then the lower shell, the plasma, the tail, 4 legs, and 3 complete feet. An accumulation of gar scales are visible between the turtle's ribs and are most likely part of its last meal. So this critter was eating gar, presumably. That is pretty cool. Holy cow. Yeah. Isn't that awesome, Sparrow Cat? Yeah, very cool. And Golganek, thank you so much for the gift sub to Ambervix. I really appreciate that. Thank you, Golganek. And Ambervix, enjoy those emotes. Enjoy not having to watch any ads that might pop up. Pretty cool. So, yeah, so you can see how the shell is folded in half like a taco. That's a nice bit of concise explanation there. That's pretty cool. We'll take a look at some of this stuff. Man, this museum is just jam-packed full of awesome things. Lower Eocene terrestrials. So this is from not too long after the extinction of the non-bird dinosaurs. When you had all kinds of weird and wonderful mammals like that walking around. Looks like we've got some Uintatheres and a big old, I forget what that guy is called, the big fossorial guy with the claws. Got all kinds of primitive primates. This might be Plesiodapsus or something. Plesiodapus, an ancient bat. And this is about as warm as the Earth has been in the past couple 100 million years. The Paleocene-Eocene thermal maximum. After the age of dinosaurs, the temperature continued to go up and up and up. And you had things like palm trees and palmettos just right here in Wyoming. And as far north as like the Arctic Circle at the time. It's a tropical Earth. Pretty cool. Very neat. Yeah. Cool stuff. Very cool. Oh, very neat. And here also from Wyoming, we have got these really awesome fishes. And invertebrates too, like these fly larvae. Very cool. So all around the world you will find fossil fishes from the Green River Formation here in Wyoming. It's a pretty famous fossil locality. And you can see why. I mean, the preservation is just absolutely beautiful. Some of these are casts, like that fossil bat right there. Those, I think, are some of the earliest bats that we have. Bats are notoriously difficult to fossilize and to find. So yeah. Only sometimes in sites where you have exquisite fossil preservation of soft tissue and the tiniest little bones do you get fossil bats. And there's a lovely example of one right there. Very cool. Yeah. Oh, and this is pretty neat. So this is Pharaotus right here, which is a large carnivorous fish. You can see those needle-like teeth right there. And that's genuine. That's the actual thing. That's not a cast. That is exquisite. Wow. Donated by Joyce and Wayne Bonebright. Awesome. The sign says these are living relatives of Pharaotus are found in tropical and semi-tropical freshwater regions around the world. You can also find the arowana sold in pet shops. So this is an Eocene relative of the arowana. Really cool fish from the Amazon basin. Awesome stuff. We've got some fossils from the White River Formation, which is from the Oligocene. There we go. And again, this is the Tate Geological Museum, so not everything here is going to be a fossil. We've got lots of specimens of cool rocks and minerals. You know, things that provide context for these fossils and actually make them meaningful, you know? Yeah. Very cool. Here are some different critters. Look at this abundance of different animals from the Orellin Formation, I guess. The Oligocene Orellin faunal community. Oh, very cool. So this is a mother oreodont with 2 embryos inside her. So she was pregnant when she died, and you can see right there by the arrow, you can see 3 tiny scapulae. And yeah, those do look like little triangular scapulae, flat. And the crushed remains of 2 skulls at a very early stage of development with no teeth formed yet. Very cool. Oreodonts are these really cool mammals, now completely extinct, but they were super common during the earlier half of the age of mammals. So they're basically, they're almost like a cross between a pig and a cow. They're not related to either of those critters. They're not related to ungulates, I don't think. Yeah, they're like a more ancient group of mammals. Very cool. Oh, and that is really neat. Holy cow, that is real. That's not a cast right there either. A snake and rabbit in the same burrow. We've got a rabbit skeleton and a snake skeleton. See this little vertebrae from the snake. These rabbit bones were preserved in 3 centimeters above a disarticulated snake skeleton, circled in black. Now the specimen is displayed from the bottom side up, so we're looking at the ventral side right here. Apparently the snake died in the burrow and the rabbit moved in later. Through the time the snake skeleton broke up, although the bones stayed close together within the confines of the burrow. The burrow filled with another 3 centimeters of dirt, and the rabbit eventually died and was preserved just like the snake. Wow. Pretty cool. Yeah. Pretty neat. And the Oligocene housing market must have been pretty tight. Ugh. If you're moving into a place that's already got a dead snake in it, and then you end up dying in it. But yeah. And Hugan says, I like how the animal depictions have them screaming. I mean, they're just showing off their teeth. This is kind of a trope in paleo art. One that I appreciate, you know? Especially with mammals. I don't know, talk to a mammal paleontologist, and the thing that they're always most excited about is the teeth. So in your mammal depictions, you usually want to have your mammals showing off those teeth. But they are all kind of screaming. Ah! Oh, pretty cool, yeah. Yeah, and then on this side, we've got herbivorous mammals. Very cool. Camels and oreodonts. There's a depiction of an oreodont right there. That's a really neat one. I like that. Leaping up into the air. We've got some early horses, some early deer, rabbits and rodents. Oh, yeah. Are oreodonts hoofed mammals? I don't think they are, but maybe they are kind of like mesonychids are. I don't know. Somebody can look it up. Are oreodonts ungulates? Are they hoofed mammals? Or are they just their own weird group? Archaic thing. I'm not sure. Somebody look that up. Yeah. Very cool. Color lines show predator-to-prey relationships. Oh, that's pretty neat. So entelodonts may have eaten rhinoceros and camels. Camels were also eaten by false cats like Dinictus right there. Small deer were eaten by Hesperocyon, western dog. And we've got a leptictid there, Leptictus. It's an insectivore. May have also fed on rabbits and rodents, I guess? Is that what they're saying? We're saying that, oh, maybe Leptictus was eaten by mustelids. Very cool. And there's glyptosaurs down there, like we saw in that other display, these Gila monster type reptiles. Pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. Yeah. And Oreodonts had a diet that consisted entirely of Oreos. Is that right, Mayor Space? Is that why they went extinct? Because of supply chain issues? Yeah. We've got some dinosaurs here. We'll take a look at them in a few minutes. Ooh, we've got some more dinosaurs here too. There, let's eat our vegetables before we get into dinosaurs. And let's go way back in time. Holy cow. Oh, I like that a lot. Please be patient. I'm on geologic time. Very cool. And Oreodonts are a kind of artiodactyl. Oh, really? So Oreodonts are ungulates then? Shoot, I was wrong. They are even-toed ungulates, apparently. Yeah. And missed the stuff on top of the cabinet. We'll see if we can get to that in a minute here, Jody Fish. But yeah. Here we're going all the way back to the dawn of the fossil record. Talking about geologic time and the geologic clock. That's pretty cool.
Astonishing. Simply astonishing. One of the most singular specimens I've encountered in all my
multicellular life was
distinguished
first
career.
Evolving.
But enough
We
of
get
that.
to the age of trilobites
What did you
in the
want to show
Cambrian
me,
period.
Lisa?
540 to 500 million years ago. This is hundreds of millions of years before the first dinosaurs evolved. Long, long before the dinosaurs. That is a rough approximation of what the continents looked like, how they were arranged during the time. Africa and South America were still joined. India and Australia were lumped together. But man, things moved around a lot in the time since. The continents will start to get a little bit more, I don't know, getting into a more modern shape that's recognizable to us in a bit. But here, we've got trilobites. Trilobites are the critters to talk about in the Cambrian. I love that. That's a really cool diagram, showing these animals scooting around, shuffling around the bottom, getting buried. Various fossil burrows and the actual body fossils of trilobites too. Neat stuff. This is pretty cool. And there is like that super large trilobite that we saw in Indiana, in Indianapolis. But that there is a cast. Yeah. Very cool. This one is from the Lower Cambrian of Morocco. Pretty neat. Yeah. And this is pretty cool. Grovant Marine Community. This reconstruction shows what kinds of animals may have lived in Wyoming during the Middle Cambrian period, when the Grovant, pronounced Grovant, formation was being deposited. Few body fossils have been found in the Grovant. Only really abundant examples are the shells of inarticulate brachiopods, but numerous trackways and burrows hint at a diversity of invertebrate life. The burrows may have been produced by worms or even small arthropods. Unfortunately, worms and soft-bodied arthropods usually don't fossilize, so the identity of most of the Grovant burrowers remains a mystery. Scolithos burrows might have been made by fanworms. So Scolithos burrows. This is an example of an ichnofossil getting a name. So sometimes if we don't have the actual physical body of an extinct creature, but we do have a trace of it, then we will name the trace. And so Scolithos refers to those particular burrows right there. I think those are the ones that are sticking straight up out of the substrate. Yeah. Like over there, I think, on the right side. Cool stuff. Very, very cool. Yeah. And here's another trace fossil that got a name. Cruziana. It's another trace fossil. These trails were probably made by trilobites as they plowed up the seabed mud in their search for food. Very cool. Very cool. So as paleontologists, we use every line of evidence that we can. If we don't have the body of an animal, we'll look at traces that it may have left, and we'll study those. There are paleontologists called paleoichnologists, where they specialize in trace fossils. And they'd be very excited about a beautiful specimen like that. Holy cow. Yeah. Pretty neat. And I love how these are such well-written displays. I like that a lot. So this is talking about whether or not we've got a lot of Cambrian age rocks here in Wyoming. So there's no rocks in Wyoming have been found found dating from the Neo-Proterozoic or the early Cambrian, leaving a gap of about 480 million years in Wyoming's geological record. The first extensive outcrops of sedimentary rock in Wyoming are about 520 million years old, which is the Middle Cambrian. At this time, the continent of North America was much lower, and a lot of it, including Wyoming, was below sea level. Cambrian rocks in Wyoming consist mainly of marine shales and limestones. Cool stuff. Very cool. I love how this is tailored for the local area, you know. Pretty neat. All right, moving forward in time. Let's get into the Silurian and Devonian periods. So we're getting into the age of fishes here with the Devonian. So here is an early lobe-finned fish. Its fins remind me of lungfish fins, especially those pectoral fins there. And we've got a giant eurypterid, a sea scorpion, right there. Very, very cool. That's a lovely depiction of this animal. I think this is more artwork from Russell, and this is awesome stuff. That's very, very cool. Yeah. Very cool, yeah. Got jawless fishes, placoderm armor, a mass mortality slab, including brachiopods, crinoids, and bryozoans. You can see those crinoid stems. Very cool. Got some snails and a roly-poly trilobite. This trilobite rolled up for defense, similar to a modern roly-poly or pill bug. So that one's called Canops. Another one that could do that is this one right here. I've never heard it called a frog-faced trilobite before. That's so funny. That's my favorite trilobite, Phacops. And you can tell I don't work on trilobites or know very much about them if I didn't realize that my favorite one is commonly called a frog-faced trilobite. But that's super cool. These guys could also roll up into a ball. Yeah. Very, very cool. Yeah. And here's a little sea scorpion there, a little eurypterid. But these guys get very, very large, up to like, I don't know, 10 or 12 feet long, like approaching 4 meters, something like that. They're the largest arthropods that ever lived, as far as we know. And there's a lovely cast, probably partly sculpted, of a eurypterid with the gills at the front, too. Very cool. So these guys are not closely related to modern-day scorpions. They're kind of their own thing. They're a group that's completely extinct now. Yeah, but we call them sea scorpions because, I don't know, gives you a rough approximation of what the animal would have looked like, I guess. Yeah. Very cool. Yeah. Neat stuff. Very, very cool. Spiral bryozoans, some crinoids, also known as sea lilies. Some corals right there. Very, very cool. So I love this is, when I came through here for the first time, I was focused on the dinosaur stuff first and foremost. Didn't really see the whole walk through time part. Very cool. So in the Pennsylvanian period, we're still a long time before the dinosaurs here. But we've got all kinds of cool amphibians and critters that have made their way up onto land at this point. They evolved from ancestors that looked a lot like that lungfish-looking critter there. You can kind of see the resemblance in the illustration from that critter to these guys, like the stegocephalian there. But this is when vertebrates start to conquer the land. Vertebrate animals with backbones, are not the first land creatures. the first land creatures were arthropods. Critters like millipedes and their ancestors, scorpions, and the ancestors of insects, too. They were the first creatures on land. The first animals on land, rather. And they start to exploit the land ecosystem not too long after plants come up onto the land and really start doing their thing. Yeah. Cool stuff. Yeah. So there's Wyoming during Pennsylvanian times, still underwater. But, yeah, Casper, Wyoming would have been just about on the equator at the time. Very cool. It's not that the equator has moved, it's that the continents have moved around on top of it. So the paleo equator there, it's almost kind of confusing. It's the same as the modern day equator. It's just the continents themselves have moved. Pretty neat. Yeah. What was that wood in the bottom corner? Like a stump? Oh, this right here. That's exactly what it is. Yeah. This is a section from a large tree-like plant. Herbaceous plants of the Mississippian grew to large sizes due to, in part, to the warm, moist environment. So this is actually from Nevada, apparently. From the Chain Man Shale in Nye County, Nevada. Pretty cool. Man, Nevada is such a weird jumble of different age rocks and everything. This being slowly pulled apart. Eventually, since Nevada is rifting right now, it's going to continue to do so. And eventually, you're going to have an inland sea that inundates central Nevada. But that's millions of years in the future. Yeah, but that's the way things are trending. That's the way it's going to go. Yeah. Cool. Or maybe you were talking about the lycopod there, actually. Is that what you were talking about, screaming opossum? Yeah. Yeah. Pretty neat. So this is a trunk section from a giant lycopod or club moss. I've talked about how club mosses and spike mosses were much more common, millions of years before the present. Well, they were some of the biggest plants on Earth during the Pennsylvanian period. Yeah. So lycopods grow to a height of over 30 meters or 98 feet. Probably larger than that, too. I mean, yeah, although I guess we don't have evidence of that yet. As the plant grew, the old leaves would fall off, leaving a diamond-shaped scar on the trunk. Pretty cool. Yeah. All right, moving forward in time a little bit. Into, alas, we've arrived in the Triassic. What happened to the Permian? Here's the Permian. Okay, cool. Yeah. So Wyoming does have some terrestrial Permian stuff, I guess. So the Permian period, yeah, a lot of interesting stuff happens in the Permian, and then it ends with a bang. The extinction event at the end of the Permian is it's the largest in Earth's history. And a bunch of these creatures ended up dying out. Yeah. Like these guys. That is a cast of a tooth whorl of Helicoprion. Nowadays they should update that illustration because we've got a better idea of what this animal looked like at this point. But basically this is like a buzzsaw shaped thing. It's a tooth whorl in the bottom jaw. And so, probably would have had, kind of a pointier nose like you've got on a lot of modern sharks. And then that lower jaw would come up, and that slicing surface created by those teeth could cleave in half cephalopods, squid and ammonoids, nautiloids, critters like that. Yeah. Very cool. We've got a giant amphibian right there. A labyrinthodont. These guys actually make it into the Mesozoic, I believe. And that is the actual specimen right there. This is not a cast. Very cool. Let's read the sign. It says, the anatomy of Sclerocephalus suggests that, like a modern crocodile, it could live on both the land and in the water. This robust amphibian had a heavily built skeleton and short, powerful legs. The large, broad skull was completely covered with plates of bone, and bony armor was set into its skin. Sclerocephalus was a voracious predator. This specimen has the remains of a fish, including scales and bony fin rays, preserved in its stomach. Very cool. And this is from the lower Permian of Ordenheim, Germany. Pretty neat. Yeah. All right, so at the end of the Permian, huge mass extinction. Critters like Gorgonopsians completely wiped out. Yeah, it's something like 90% of species on Earth died at the end of the Permian. And then we get into the Triassic. And it's during the Triassic period that dinosaurs first arise. Yeah, so we moved from the Paleozoic era into the Mesozoic era. And this is often called like the heyday of the reptiles, the age of reptiles. And you see that represented here. You've got big old herbivorous critters like Desmatosaucus right there. There's some sort of archosaur relatives, so they're like distant relatives of the dinosaurs. Haptosaucus might be a little bit closer to dinosaurs. It's a big carnivorous land-dwelling crocodilian. And Paleorhinus up there, I think, is it's not a crocodile, that's a phytosaur right there. Crocodiles had not yet evolved. Oh, and these guys are super neat. Check out these nothosaurs. These are some Triassic marine reptiles. They might be the ancestors of plesiosaurs. So they're kind of like a plesiosaur, just a little bit lizardy here. They've got fingers, they've got digits that are distinct on their limbs, but they're kind of developing that plesiosaur body shape. And eventually they'll get there. Yeah. Very cool. This is from near Alcova, Wyoming. The slab of limestone contains the lower limb bones from a Corosaurus. Scientists have determined that nothosaurs are not dinosaurs based on features of their hips and skulls. Highlighted area of the bones can be seen in the rock slab. This is the only known nothosaur species found in North America. Is that right? Wow, holy cow. So here are bones of the only nothosaur from North America. That is pretty special. Pretty neat. So from a critter like that. Very, very cool. Yeah. Yeah. Neat stuff. Very neat. So, from ancestors such as these, critters like this evolved. This is a lovely, really cool model of a plesiosaur. So it might be made of balsa wood? That's really neat. Yeah. Full-size model of the juvenile plesiosaur Triclitus, made by Jim Coburn. So, here in Wyoming, during the, I think, middle Jurassic period, a lot of Wyoming was underwater, what we call the Sundance Formation. So there we go. There's the extent of that seaway during it's the middle Jurassic? Or maybe the early part of the late Jurassic. You've got the Sundance Formation. It covered most of Wyoming right there. That ancient seaway. And all kinds of really cool marine reptiles were doing their thing, like plesiosaurs, like ichthyosaurs. There's a dead ichthyosaur being fed on by a shark. And then this is almost like a whale fall, except it's not a whale, it's an ichthyosaur. Pretty cool. So the ichthyosaur that we saw back there is also, I think, from the Sundance Formation. Yeah, there we go. From the lower part of the upper Jurassic Formation, if that makes sense. Yeah. Really cool. Oh, and there's a nothosaur skeleton. Shoot, I missed this before. There's a model of a nothosaur skeleton built from scratch. And there's one of the big old amphibian. And that's the same cast that we had at the Badlands Dinosaur Museum. I talk about the toilet seat cover headed amphibians. That's what I'm talking about right there. Yeah. It's got a head like a toilet seat cover. And then that's just basically to show you what the rest of the skeleton would look like. I'm not sure. It's probably made of balsa wood. Interesting. Yeah. And then, of course, we get into my very favorite critters, the dinosaurs. There we go. Lovely Camarasaurus skull cast that they've got there. Looks particularly snaggle-toothed. Very, very cool. And those jaws are kind of splayed out to the side. That's not what it would look like in life. That's a result of breaking and the way that was preserved, crushed under the overlying rocks. But yeah, the Morrison Formation of Wyoming. So some of the most famous fossils from Wyoming are from the Morrison Formation. We'll be seeing a lot more of these Morrison fossils over the next week at various institutions and then at Dinosaur National Monument. But yeah, so this is when you've got these enormous sauropod dinosaurs like Camarasaurus here, and Apatosaurus, Diplodocus, and Barosaurus, moving across these great big floodplains, browsing on trees and on fern prairies. And you've got all kinds of meat-eating dinosaurs running around, doing their thing, trying to make meals out of these larger sauropods. You've also got stegosaurs like Stegosaurus. You've got ornithopods like Dryosaurus and Camptosaurus. And you've got Monolophosaurus in China. I'm not sure. They must have just got hold of a Monolophosaurus skull cast and put it on display here. This is also from the Jurassic period, but this guy's from China, not from the Morrison Formation. Yeah. Yeah, pretty neat. Take a look at that crest running down the center of the skull. So Monolophosaurus is from the late Jurassic, I think, of China. I think it's from the same exact formation as the early Tyrannosauroid Guanlong, who also has an interesting, nasal crest running down the sagittal plane of his head. And he is smaller than this guy. At the same time, same place, got a vaguely similar kind of crest. Interesting. Somebody should look into that. Could they actually be the same critter? Monolophosaurus has been classified as a megalosauroid. But I don't know. I mean, yeah. I would not be shocked if it turns out those critters are actually the same. Again, somebody should look into that. Yeah. And then we get into the Cretaceous period. Very cool. We've got a Microraptor chomping down on a lizard there. Very cool. This again is a model. But it's really impressive what they've been able to do at this museum. Pack so many things into such a tight space and put so many cool things on display. And when they don't have fossils to display, there are some very talented people who have created models like this. So it's like a Deinonychus model right there. Or Dromaeosaurus is what they're calling it. Very cool. Very, very cool. Yeah. So in the Cretaceous period, part of Wyoming was covered by seaways at various points. The WIS, the Western Interior Seaway, cut across Wyoming at various times during the Cretaceous. There we go. Wyoming during Cody/Pierre times. So the Pierre Shale is a famous marine setting during the Cretaceous period. Yeah. And you had all kinds of cool invertebrates, like these ammonites there, crustaceans, and bivalves and critters like that. And you've got various fishes, and then you've got your classic marine reptiles. Critters like those big old plesiosaurs. Pretty neat. There's a jaw of Siphaxtinus, like we've been seeing at various museums. Big old bulldog fish. Yeah. And, yeah. And then on land, we're getting into our dinosaurs here. At the very end of the Cretaceous period, you've got critters like your duck-billed dinosaurs and Montosaurus. This is a sacrum. So these are... A sacrum that's the vertebrae within... the sacral vertebrae are the vertebrae within the hips. So that's what you're seeing right here. They kind of tend to enlarge within the hips right there. And most dinosaurs have 5 sacral vertebrae. So here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's the first of what looks like the caudal vertebrae there. Yeah. So the front of the animal would be this way, I presume. Very cool. And still in its original field jacket. Yeah. Awesome. We've got a lovely soft-shelled turtle. Very cool. Oh, and I like how the mirror has been placed there so you can see the vertebrae at the top. So turtle shells, the carapace, the shell in a turtle, is partly made of flattened out ribs. So when you look at a turtle's shell, you're seeing its ribs to a certain extent. And that really becomes obvious thanks to that mirror there that they've put so that you can see the vertebrae. Pretty neat. Pretty neat. Yeah. Yeah, you like the aluminum foil, makes it look fresh from the oven. There you go, barnacle pump. I like that, yeah. The ones that make you hurt if you're a bipedal primate, sacrals, exactly, Golganek, yep. Yeah. And we've got, holy cow, neck vertebrae from a Triceratops. Very, very cool. Is this the syncervical? It looks like it. There's multiple vertebrae that are fused together for strength, because these animals had enormous heads, very, very heavy. And there is the nasal horn that you see right there. So this is from Triceratops prorsus, and I'm glad they got that right. Good for them. Yeah. That enlarged nasal horn is what we see in Triceratops from the top of the Hell Creek Formation. So this is the last species of Triceratops to exist on Earth before the asteroid hits. And they've got that elongate nasal horn, like you see right there. This is a cast, obviously. And there's a cast of the skull dome of Pachycephalosaurus. Now, Pachycephalosaurus, its species name, means from Wyoming. Pachycephalosaurus wyomingensis. So I'm glad that they've got a Pachy on display here. That's very fitting for a Wyoming museum. You gotta have Pachycephalosaurus stuff. Very, very cool. Yeah. And we've got a lower jaw. This is genuine of a Triceratops. So you can see all those gaps that have been filled in with what looks like water putty, maybe? And then there's those teeth. And so this is the left dennary of this animal. And so its tongue would be on the other side of those teeth. I wish I could show you the other side of the teeth, but there's multiple tooth rows that all have their teeth erupting. So there's like a continuous cutting surface. So these animals have multiple rows of teeth that are all contributing to what we call a dental battery. So as these animals would chew, the teeth would come down and they'd kind of slide past each other like that, almost like a pair of scissors or something. It would be a very, very efficient way of breaking up plant material. Probably one of the reasons for these animals' tremendous success in the late Cretaceous period. Ceratopsians, the horned dinosaurs, they just take over North America and Asia to a certain extent too. Yeah, very, very successful critters. Yeah. And a dome must be an old person. Golganek, it probably is, yeah. Yeah. And there's a cluster of those spikes. Yeah. From like the back or the side of the skull. So you can see in the reconstruction there's the dome at the top and the spikes on the side. Very cool, yeah. And then after, of course, the asteroid strikes, it wipes out dinosaurs like Triceratops, Pachycephalosaurus, and T-Rex. And yeah, all the dinosaurs except for birds die out at that time. And the Paleocene stage begins. Right there. The seaway had largely retreated by that point. And Earth temperatures continue to go up and up. And you get all these cool tropical plants here in Wyoming. And yeah, a lot of them actually form layers of coal. So Paleocene rocks are usually shot through with all kinds of layers of coal, especially in like the Hell Creek and Lance formations. It's one of the ways that you can tell, even if you can't necessarily spot the KPG boundary and make that out, you can still say, oh shoot, you've got all these layers of coal that are really
let's protect our fossils because
spaced very frequently.
If they're removed,
probably in the Paleocene.
Correct.
There's a reconstruction of a champsosaur there. These are really weird critters. That is not a crocodile. It's not an alligator. It's not any kind of crocodilian. Oh wait, nope, hang on. Nope, that's not a champsosaur. I'm reading the sign. That's a dinosaur, which I'm not really familiar with. Never mind. But here's a jaw of one. That's pretty cool. Let's read the sign since I was wrong about that. Sorry, everybody. This is meanwhile in Africa. During the Paleocene, Africa was home to a family of long-snouted marine crocodiles called dinosaurs, not to be confused with dryosaurs, which are a kind of ornithopod dinosaur. Anyway, dinosaurs and chelonioid sea turtles were the only marine reptiles to survive the mass extinction at the end of the Cretaceous. I didn't realize that, shoot. There were marine crocodiles that survived? I thought they all got wiped out. I'm glad we read this sign. I just learned something. This genus, Hyposaurus. Let's get some hype going for Hyposaurus. Lived in North and South America during the Upper Cretaceous. At the end of the Cretaceous, they became extinct in the Americas, but by that time it had emigrated to Africa, where they persisted into the Eocene epoch. Wow. I did not realize that. Sea turtles are not the only marine reptiles to survive the asteroid. Marine crocodiles did too, before they died out eventually. Interesting. Yeah. Very cool, very cool. Wipes animals back in. There you go, particle bomb. Well, shoot, we've probably got some new folks here. So let me do a quick, station break. And, for anybody who's just waltzed in recently, and you're wondering what's going on, my name is Danny Anduze. I'm a dinosaur paleontologist. And right now I'm on a big road trip going all across the American West, visiting different museums and field sites, and I'll be doing some field work in about a week, digging up some dinosaurs in Utah. Hopefully we can stream that. Right now, I am at the Tate Geological Museum in Casper, Wyoming, at Casper College here in Casper, Wyoming. This is a lovely institution. You should definitely stop here if you ever get the chance. Very, very cool. And there's some ongoing preparation and fieldwork and research happening right now. I was hoping that we would get to talk with Russell Hawley here today, who's the education director at the museum. But he's out sick today. Apparently just called in sick today or yesterday.
On formal occasions,
and then
he's called
JP,
Brontosaurus.
who runs all the paleo stuff here. He's the head honcho paleontologist. He is in the field right now, out digging. So it's just me. You're stuck with me for today, and I hope that's okay. But yeah. Let's see. And thank you, Hugan. They're both from the same formation. Okay, cool. Blues Traveler says, are dinosaur bones radioactive? Sometimes. It depends what geologic setting we're talking about. Occasionally, they are mildly radioactive, but that's not something that's particular to dinosaur bones in general. Certainly not. Yeah. Oh, cool. I don't want to pass this up. We've got a giant straight-shelled ammonite right there, Baculites. So not all ammonites had coiled shells. Some of them were long and straight like this, like you see there in that illustration that Russell did. And then here we've got a lovely model that was crafted by Jim Copen, showing you what a dromaeosaur skeleton looks like. This animal is actually larger than Velociraptor right here. And there's a Velociraptor head model. Very cool. Got a big old Triceratops skull up there on the wall. Very cool. And we've got a Deinonychus skull. So the Velociraptor from Jurassic Park and Jurassic World is actually this dinosaur, Deinonychus. And it should have feathers on it. I'm sure this model was produced probably during the 80s or 90s, before we realized that these animals had feathers on them. Now we know they would have looked basically like big, weird, ground-running birds. Pretty neat, yeah. Neat stuff. So we already looked at this. Let's take a look at this stuff now. Very cool. This is the pelvic girdle and upper hind limb of Torvosaurus. Torvosaurus is one of these late Jurassic Morrison Formation big carnivorous dinosaurs. So they live at the same time as Allosaurus and Ceratosaurus. And yeah, it's interesting. They've got all three of those critters all in the same environment. But yeah, Torvosaurus, its hips look a lot different from Allosaurus. It's got these weird depressions there in the ilia. Yeah. And then that weird prong on the femur, too. I'm not used to seeing that in allosaur femurs. Interesting stuff. That, and then we've got Apatosaurus, also known as Brontosaurus here. This is a foot and... No, hang on. This is a forelimb, yeah. So a hand, radius and ulna, and humerus right here. was going to say it was a hind foot. I'm like, that's a weird looking femur. No, that's the humerus, the upper arm bone there. Yeah. Look at the big crest on it for those muscle attachment points. Look at how robust this is. Apatosaurus is so much more robust and chunky than Diplodocus. Again, we'll see some Diplodocus stuff in just a few days. Maybe even tomorrow. I'm not sure if tomorrow's museum has any Diplodocus. We'll have to see. But yeah, take note of how robust these limbs are. Let's take a mental snapshot here. Because when we see Diplodocus, which is a very close relative of Apatosaurus, they're like almost sister taxa. They're in the same family. They're both diplodocid sauropods. They're very different in their robusticity. Apatosaurus is a real chonker. Yeah. And then, very cool, Rip Van Allosaur. I like that. The arm and fingers before you were casts of Rip Van Allosaur, which was discovered at Como Bluff, Wyoming. Allosaurs are a part of the theropod suborder, a group of two-legged predatory dinosaurs. Take a look at that. So this is bigger than Big Al's forelimbs. At home, I've got a cast of Big Al, who's also from Wyoming. Maybe the world's most famous Allosaurus. His thumb claw is significantly smaller than this one here. This is the hand. We've got these beautiful and deadly claws. Animal probably used them like meat hooks to just grip into prey. Very cool. So, just like in your arm, we've got the same exact bones. This is what we call homology. Just about every vertebrate animal works the same way because we all, if you go back far enough, come from a common ancestor. That's why we've got the same bones. Anyway, humerus, this is your upper arm bone, like there. You've got your radius and ulna, and there's what we call the funny bone on us. That's the elbow. So, radius and ulna. Then you've got the carpal bones, the wrist bones. You've got the metacarpals, and you've got the phalanges. Those finger bones right there, just like we have. This is the thumb, index finger, middle finger, and then the two other fingers that would be there have been lost. Dinosaurs start off with 5. Is it 5 or is it 4? It might be 4. I think it's 4. They start off with 4. I think Eoraptor has 4. And all dinosaurs afterward have 4 or fewer bones. 4 or fewer fingers. So yeah. Very cool. What's my phone doing? Yeah. Yeah. And shoot, we're gonna run out of time pretty soon. We'll just kind of cruise through here, and then we'll get into some more of our dinosaur stuff. But the Miocene and Pliocene, this is after the age of dinosaurs here in Wyoming. You've got megalodon teeth. Very cool. I wonder if that's from Wyoming. Sperm whale teeth on land. You've got ancient camels and horses, ancient rhinoceros, and that weird thing right there, with the big old, with the thing with its arms much longer than its legs, and the big claws, and the big bump on his head. That looks to me like a Calicothere. These really weird, almost sloth-like. It's like a cross between a sloth and a horse. Although I don't think they're related to either. Calicotheres are super weird. Yeah. Here's a ground sloth skull. That's a cast right there. And this is a really cool thing. These guys aren't from here in Wyoming. This is a saber-toothed, not cat. Believe it or not, everybody, that is related to marsupials. So I think it's a stem marsupial. It's not a true marsupial itself. But we'll just call it a marsupial for the sake of simplicity here. Basically, it's like a giant saber-toothed opossum. Like, it's much closer to that than it is to a cat. Saber fangs like this seem to be a really useful adaptation for a lot of different groups of mammals, and they evolve multiple times. It's a beautiful example of convergent evolution, of creatures that are not related to each other, but they develop, the same kinds of morphologies. It's called convergent evolution. If you're doing the same kind of job, even if you're not related to another critter, you might develop a similar morphology if you're doing the same kind of job. So yeah. Although these saber fangs are a lot thinner and kind of, they're more bladed than those of a saber-toothed cat, so they may well have been used for something different. Like, yeah. They look a lot more delicate. So yeah, maybe generally speaking, they're used to take down prey, but maybe these guys are, rather than like biting through the necks of their prey, maybe those saber fangs are for wrenching out guts or something. I don't know. But yeah, cool critter, Thylacus milis. Very cool. So I think that's from Argentina? It's from South America. Yeah. And then we move into the Pleistocene, like we've been in for yesterday at the mammoth site. Here's again our giant short-faced bear, Arctodus. Take a look at that skull. There's a Smilodon skull. You can see the teeth are much more robust on that. Yeah. And there we go. This is pretty cool. We were talking about pronghorn, and actually, you know what? On the drive here to the museum today, there was a pronghorn that just ran right in front of my car. Like in the middle of Casper, Wyoming. Maybe not the middle of Casper, but I was up by the National Historic Trails Interpretive Center, which is really cool if you ever get a chance to visit. Remarkable. The budget they must have had for that place is extraordinary. You know, I was driving from there to here, and driving down the hill, and yeah, it's a pronghorn, just, you know, kind of running across the road, all casual. It wasn't even really running, it was more walking. But yeah, pronghorn like this are leftovers from the Pleistocene here in North America. So they belong to a group called Antilocapridae, and these are the last surviving members, pronghorn. And today these are the fastest mammals in North America. They can run like over 40 miles per hour. And it seems they first evolved that speed in order to escape from Miracyonyx, the American cheetah. See, the extinct American cheetah, Miracyonyx trumani, runs down a pair of pronghorn antelope, Antilocapra americana, near Natural Trop Cave in Wyoming. So today these guys are extinct, but I guess you could say they're the ghost of predators past, still extant in the fact that pronghorn are so fast because they evolved to outrun American cheetahs, who are now gone. Cool stuff. Very cool stuff. Yeah. But yeah. Anyway, and Ironheart says that chin is so weird. Yeah, the chin on the on Thylacus milis is bizarre indeed. That's probably to help protect those teeth, having that those chin flanges there. You're less likely to break the teeth if you've got kind of a sheath between them. Yeah, pretty cool. Oh, and there's some info on our Cholicotherium there. And cyclopods, like this Cholicotherium, looked a bit like horses but had large claws on their hands and feet. They were distantly related to the modern rhinoceros. Oh, so they're perissodactyls. Very cool. The species showed here lived in Europe and Asia, but the bones of similar animals have been found in Goshen Hole and near Pilgrim Creek, Wyoming. Cholicotherium lived about 8 million years ago. So again, that's Tylocephalonyx. That must be one of our North American Cholicotheres. Really strange. Yeah. That's cool. Once, you know, dinosaurs go extinct except for birds, mammals are suddenly free to do all these weird and cool things. Yeah. Anyway. Pronghorn can run 55 miles per hour. Holy cow, Blues Traveler. I'm glad I said over 40 miles per hour. So I can still be correct about that. But yeah, 55, that's... be breaking the speed limit in a lot of places. Yeah. We've got a lovely apatosaur skull model up there. Pretty cool. You can see those kind of simple peg-shaped teeth. This, of course, is a model. It's not a cast of the real thing. It's just to give you a basic idea of what it would look like. They've only got teeth at the front of the jaw. These animals did not chew. They swallowed their food whole. And, yeah. Let's go ahead and mosey on over here. And we'll take a look at... I was going to say we'll take a look at some more dinosaurs, but we can't pass by this crocodile and neglect it. Holy moly. Gavialisuchus, this is a Miocene crocodile. So the scientist Gavialisuchus lived in North America and Europe during the Cerebellian and Tortonian stages of the Miocene epoch. It was related to the modern gavial, or slender-snouted fish-eating crocodilian from India. Pretty cool. It clearly had a different diet, though, than the modern gharial. those teeth are pretty formidable. Looks like it could take a lot of land-dwelling prey with those. It's not just a fish eater. Very cool. That's from the Oligocene, from after the age of dinosaurs. And then, and Jody fish. I know Jody fish. Yeah, we've got some Dimetrodon up here. There's other cool stuff on top of the cabinets. I can't look at everything though, or I'd be here all day, you know? But I do want to definitely show you this right here. So this is a big old field jacket, and they clearly had to get very creative in order to get this out of the field. You see by the variety of different materials that make up this jacket. But this is Edmontosaurus. A hadrosaur called Dead Sheep 148. What? This hadrosaur was discovered in 2005 on the Meadow Ranch, which was owned by Lee and Vicki Brown. It was named Dead Sheep 148 because the skeleton was found near the body of a dead sheep whose ear tag read 148. Although it was said that the ewe had died,
Here's something stranger than
although it was
science
sad
fiction.
that the ewe had died, the
Prehistoric
discovery was
fact.
fortuitous for her 2 lambs, which were then hand-raised by the landowners. So, site names sometimes have kind of colorful histories. When we find a dinosaur fossil, you know, we give it a field number. Usually it's got like a site number too, but those field numbers and site numbers can be difficult to remember. So in order to make things a little easier on ourselves, we also give the site a name. So that's sometimes the names are weird, like Dead Sheep 148. Yeah. So this is a fairly small Edmontosaurus, probably subadult or juvenile, because these animals get really, really large. So there is, it's like Russell put together a really nice illustration of the Lance Formation, which is Wyoming's equivalent to the Hell Creek Formation. So you've got Edmontosaurus back there. You've got Tyrannosaurus in the background, Triceratops, and an ornithomimid right here. But those guys, the duck-billed dinosaurs, Edmontosaurus, grow to be the largest dinosaurs in the Hell Creek. They get even larger than T-Rex. So this right here is a juvenile. So you can see there's her hip right there, her ilium. There is the femur going down. Here's the scapula right here. And that is the humerus? What is that? Got a big articular end right there. Kind of weird. And then you've... Oh wait, no, hang on. Is this... No, that's the front part of the ilium. Shoot. Sorry. And then this must be the scap right here. Scapula, shoulder blade. Got some ribs, got some vertebrae. And then you might be wondering, what are these really bizarre looking bones along here? These long, straight ones like that. What is going on there? Does anybody have any idea what these long, thin ones are along here? Let me know if you might have an idea. Yeah. But as you're thinking about that, let's just take a look at this jacket that they put together. We've got all kinds of expanding foam right here. We've got our normal plaster and burlap inside there, but also aluminum foil to act as separator. And then those look like bits of kitchen sponges in there that must have been put in as padding. And here's what looks like part of a pool noodle in there too. Orange foam. When you're in the field, you do what works. Sometimes we've got very limited resources, sometimes very limited budgets. You use whatever you have on hand, and you get the job done. So yeah, gotta have some ingenuity when you're digging up dinosaurs in the field. Let's see. And can you get leaf springs like on a car? No, not that. They're not ribs, Cassie K. No. These long, thin bones that you see right there are what we call ossified tendons. So that's pretty common in duck-billed dinosaurs. They need like a certain degree of rigidity in their spine, and so, as I understand it, those ossified tendons are actually tendons or ligaments that over the course of the animal's lifespan, those tendons and ligaments actually turn to bone. They ossify, hence the term ossified tendon. Pretty cool. So it's like a trying to make this structure more rigid. Very, very cool. Ossified tendons, yeah. Ossified. Like osseous, like bony. But yeah. And, oh, very cool. And we've got the arm here. This is the arm of Dead Sheep 148. The arm is small compared to the leg, indicating that it was probably not used while walking long distances or running. It is hypothesized that the arm was used for support when the dinosaur was resting or browsing for food. There are some hadrosaur paleontologists who would disagree about that. They'd be like, no, they probably did walk on all fours most of the time. I'm not sure why, but that's what I've heard the modern consensus is. I don't know. It would make more sense to me if these guys were facultatively bipedal, but you don't often see them portrayed that way. Anyway, this arm is a composite made up of elements from both of Dead Sheep 148's arms. Sides are indicated in bold. Oh, interesting. So we've got the left radius and the right ulna together. That's why that looked kind of wonky to me. Left humerus and left scapula. Those do look like they fit together. Very cool. So yeah. You know, the arm does make it look bigger than I thought it was. This jacket, maybe because everything's all squashed together, makes it look really small. But yeah, so this would be, I guess, a subadult to a small adult Edmontosaurus. But much, much smaller than the maximum size for these animals. They can get to like 50 feet long. Like the size of a city bus. Pretty cool. And then we've got, right here, a lovely cast. This is just gorgeous. What a beautiful display piece of an ornithomimid dinosaur. So this one here says Struthiomimus sedens. From the Lance Formation. Is that really from the Lance? Because we would get ornithomimosaurs in the Hell Creek and we never knew what to call them. Is it Struthiomimus? Is it Ornithomimus? Is it what? This guy's big. Bigger than I would imagine for a Maastrichtian ornithomimosaur from North America. Like, just to give you some idea of scale here. Here's me next to that hand. Those classic ornithomimosaur-shaped claws. They've got these long, fairly straight claws like this. If you ever find a claw in the field that looks like that, you're looking at an ornithomimosaur claw. Pretty cool. Look at that lovely toothless beak. The name Struthiomimus means ostrich mimic. So these dinosaurs would have been fairly ostrich-like. In fact, this picture doesn't even really do it justice. It's a beautiful illustration here. Looks like Russell did that. That's lovely. It's like Greg Paul-esque. But now we recognize that these animals would have been fully coated with feathers. Had feathers all over their bodies. They would have looked like a big old weird emu, but with arms and a long bony tail. Yeah. Take a look, such big arms. I was not expecting this animal to be so big. So let me kind of interpret the skeleton for you, because you might be wondering what's going on here. So we've got the skull and the neck, and then right here that's the shoulder blade, and then up here, these are the leg bones. So that is the right leg right there. It's been shunted up over the rib cage. These are the ribs right here. And underneath here, who can tell me what these are? Does anybody have any idea what these bizarre rib-like things are? From the underside of the rib cage. Yeah. Oh, and shoot, there's the other arm. Another humerus. So this is the right arm right here. Humerus, radius and ulna, and the hand. Right there. What a beautiful cast. Just gorgeous. Yeah, very, very cool. Oh, and cool Dork Apocalypse. That's really neat. Yeah. Cool stuff. Hagpats, hello to you too. Welcome, welcome. And Golganek, how are you doing? Yeah.
The dinosaurs had not died, perhaps.
Those are the gastralia, the belly
no
ribs.
No reason to think
right
dinosaurs
there.
wouldn't still be here,
wouldn't still be dominating the Earth. So, shoot, if I weren't holding the camera, I could, like, try and contort myself into a way that would show what's... Well, here we've got kind of what's going on with this animal. So you've got the right leg bent really sharply at the knee right there, and at the ankle. The tail is gone, but there is the left leg. Here is the right arm and left arm right there. What a gorgeous specimen. Very cool. Unfortunately, it looks like the original one is probably in private hands. Black Hills Institute, which means that it might not even be available for scientific study. It's too bad, because it's gorgeous. But yeah. And Hugin, yeah, sure. Hey, send it to me on Twitter, Hugin. I'm more likely to see it that way. If you want me to identify that. But yeah. We'll probably finish up with our trike there. But over here, oh cool, we've got some bonus displays on Cretaceous marine stuff. Really neat. Very, very cool. Got some lovely mosasaur material here. Nice vertebral series. You've got some jaw bones with some teeth inside, some lovely ammonites. And some of you may not realize it, but not all ammonites have that really neat and tidy curled shape, like this. Some of them have really, really crazy patterns instead. And I think it's I don't think they do that during the Jurassic. I think it's just a Cretaceous thing. Some of them, they start to kind of uncurl like that. Some of them, like Toxoceratoides, like they curl at one end and then they get long and straight at the other. And some of them just do all kinds of really weird, bizarre, crazy things with their shells, like in those illustrations there. Cretaceous ammonites are extremely strange. There's another example of one right there. Yeah. Really weird, but since they evolve so quickly and since those shell shapes evolve so quickly, they make for very, very good index fossils. So basically, a long time ago when these things were first being discovered, the scientists who were finding them took very careful note of in which rock layers they were found. And eventually you can create kind of a nice little timeline. You can watch one species evolve into another. You can watch when certain species arise and then when they go extinct. And so if you find a particular kind of ammonite, you can know, like that, what time it was from. Because of the very careful study and really detailed work of scientists from before. It's really neat. We call it an index fossil, when you can use a fossil to kind of date a particular rock that it's found in. Yeah. Got some more Xiphactinus material. Xiphactinus, rather. Got a lovely classic shaped ammonite right there. And there is a lovely model of a hybodont shark. Very cool. Hybodont shark cephalic spines. And where are those? Oh, shoot, they're right there, I guess. Wow, there's a whole pavement of hybodont spines. The spine belonged to an extinct group of sharks called hybodonts, represented by the model shown here. The spine would have been attached to the shark's skull behind the eye socket. Oh, that's that barb-shaped one right there. Very cool. Yeah. The overall length of the shark can be estimated by measuring the spine and converting the measurement from centimeters to meters. That's interesting. From 3/8 of an inch to 23 feet. Huh. This shark may have been approximately 7 meters, which is as long as the modern great white shark. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. A hybodont. I didn't realize they got that big. Really neat. Very cool. We've got some mosasaurs over here. And mosasaurs they're some of the biggest stars, I guess, of Cretaceous seaways. These are giant marine lizards. Let me make sure that I'm still live for a second, because I haven't heard anybody ask any questions for a minute. Looks like we're still good. Yeah. Shoot, let me know if you can see and hear me right now, because my chat keeps disconnecting. Oh no, it looks like we're good. Anyway, yeah. These guys are giant marine lizards. So at one point, lizards take to the sea, and then they kind of win the evolutionary lottery. The big short-necked plesiosaurs, like pliosaurs, they end up dying out. And these guys take over as the ocean's top vertebrate predators. There are many different kinds that lived in the late Cretaceous. Tylosaurus being maybe the biggest one here in North America. Tylosaurus and Mosasaurus, I guess they're both kind of vying for that title. Yeah. Very cool. There's a lovely cast of Cleidastes. There's flippers from these critters. They've got very lizardy phalanges on them. That's cool stuff. And there is a Tylosaurus specimen. That is not a cast. That is the real thing. Look at the size of those teeth. Very cool. So this mosasaur is characterized by the toothless portion at the tip of its snout. Very cool. Donated by Douglas Coates from Natrona County, Wyoming. So this, you're only looking at the front of its jaws right here. This would have been such a big animal. So that portion there is toothless at the front. You've got teeth extending to the eye socket would be about there, I guess, or maybe even a bit further back. This animal in life would have been like 40 feet long. Like 12 meters. Really impressive. It would have looked a lot like that. Although, more recent reconstructions of these animals, kind of like these, they show them being almost reminiscent of whales. That's kind of our latest picture of mosasaurs. We know that they are lizards. They're derived from lizards related to like varanids. But in their overall body shape and their like external appearance and life, they would have been kind of more whaley superficially. If that makes sense. Yeah. And Mundell says our mosasaurs dinosaurs are reptiles. They're reptiles, so these are actually a kind of lizard. Mosasaurs are part of Squamata, the lizard group. Same group that includes lizards and snakes. So they are not dinosaurs. Oh, and very cool, we've got a cast of Globidens. Globidens is a mosasaur who did not have sharp teeth. Those teeth were really round and blunt, probably used for what we call durophagy, eating very durable stuff, very hard stuff, cracking open shells and muscles and things like that. Neat stuff. So there's Russell's put together a nice illustration right there. Very cool. Yeah. So they maybe even cracked open ammonites or belemnites too. Pretty cool. So pretty adaptable animals. You've got like different ecologies represented here. Some of them are top predators within Mosasauria, and some of them are adapted for eating shelled critters. Pretty cool. Shows that overall body plan is pretty adaptable. Here we've got a bunch of different invertebrates, from belemnites to crinoids to ammonoids and nautiloids. Cool stuff. These are from Jurassic period, Sundance footage. Up here, also from the Jurassic. We've got some plesiosaurs and some ichthyosaurs too.
Executive Storm is getting serious with those 5 gift
Very
subs.
cool. Yeah. And this is neat. Predatory evidence. Oh, very neat. That looks like one of the, like the end of a humerus or something there. Yeah, this plesiosaur limb bone has been bitten, quite possibly by another plesiosaur. Look closely for the half-moon-shaped set of teeth marks at the end, and there they are. Whew. Just like that. Pretty awesome. Yeah. Very, very cool. And that's a nasty place to get a bite, too. So, I'm not sure what kind of plesiosaur that's from, if it's from a long-necked or a short-necked plesiosaur, because we had both during the Jurassic. So, short-necked plesiosaurs, they get very, very large, and they are basically the mosasaurs of their day. They were the top predators. Probably eating just about whatever they wanted. Eating long-necked plesiosaurs, eating ichthyosaurs, eating fishes and squids and sharks, whatever they could get their jaws around. Oh, and very neat. We've got this display on ichthyosaurs here. Immediately, my eye is drawn to this eye right here. Check that out. That sclerotic ring right there. The bones within the eye. So ichthyosaur eye. Let's read this placard here. It says several ichthyosaurs were adapted for deep water diving. Their eyes were extremely large, with some measuring 26 centimeters, 10 inches in diameter. Having larger eyes allowed these creatures to perceive and use even the smallest amount of light that penetrated down into the dark depths of the sea. The sclerotic ring is a round bone embedded in the eyeball of many vertebrates, excluding mammals and a few other individual species. The animals that have them tend to have eyes that are not spherical. It is believed that the sclerotic ring keeps their eyes in shape. This ring is usually preserved and allows scientists to measure the exact size and shape of the eye. It can be tricky to measure eye size because the eye itself does not fossilize. It's very squishy. It's one of the first things to decay and decompose after an animal dies. But having bones in there like the sclerotic ring can help us to study the actual eye. This cast was taken from a specimen that is currently housed at the University of Wyoming Geological Museum. That's in Laramie, I think. Laramie, Wyoming. The species is undetermined, however the eye structure may warrant the creation of a new species. The size of the orbit shows that this Baptanodon, so it's a species of Baptanodon, Baptanodon being the genus, so we can call it Baptanodon species, if we want to be specific. Shows that this Baptanodon had an eyeball that was over 7 inches in diameter, 18 centimeters, making it the largest eye in relation to the body of any vertebrate. Baptanodon lived during the Jurassic, but have been included in this Triassic display since ichthyosaurs first appeared here. Oh, so these are... Huh. I think it's supposed to be Triassic. Got all kinds of stuff in this display. Anyway, really neat. Very cool. Largest eyes of any creatures that ever lived on ichthyosaurs. Pretty awesome. Yeah. Pretty awesome. We've got some pterosaurs over here. But before we get to them, let's take a look at these critters. We've got some titanotheres, Hyracidon, which is a... I think it's an oreodont? Or is it a rhino? No, it's a rhino. Yeah. Got some oreodonts, all kinds of little cool mammals. This one's still in the original field jacket. It's a 3-toed horse, Mesohippus. Very cool. Wow. They must have caught this at just the right time, like it was just being exposed. You can see some erosion taking place there. Those limbs all being chunked up. But it's still in articulation. You know, it's kind of shattered, but it's still beautiful. Very, very cool. Yeah. And this is really neat. I did not know this. This sign here. How to identify rhino teeth. All rhinoceros upper molars have a distinctive shape. 3 cutting edges, arranged like the Greek letter pi. This pattern is good for chopping leaves and small branches. Pretty neat. You can see that pie shape. Look at the, not the ones down here, but the ones up there. Look at those teeth in cross-section. Super neat. So rhinos have pie teeth. You could say they've got 3.14, 15926 cutting edges. Pretty neat. There's a big old titanothere skull right there. Yeah. So these are, I think, distantly related to perissodactyls, the odd-toed ungulates. Very cool. And then look at this. Look at these guys. These are oreodonts. They probably all died together in a burrow, I'm guessing. Let's see what the sign says. Yeah, multiple oreodonts in a collapsed burrow. This is a classic arrangement. This unique specimen contains the remains of 5 juvenile, preschool, and 5 subadult or teenage oreodonts that were trapped and later preserved in their burrow. It is hypothesized that predators, possibly Hyaenodon, forced the retreating teenage oreodonts into the preschool burrow. Predators then dug at the entrances to get them and collapsed the burrow, trapping and thus killing them in a tightly confined space. It's an interesting hypothesis. I wonder if they have... I wonder what kind of evidence they have for that. The predators and or possibly later scavengers dug into the collapsed burrow and scavenged the remains, scattering the back ends of several of the oreodonts near the burrow entrance. That makes sense. So there's a depiction of that happening right there. Hyaenodon. Just going at these poor oreodonts. And what was the saying again? Like at the museum in St. Paul. What's in the middle of an oreodont? The answer is meat, unfortunately for them. Yeah, and look at that lovely depiction there. Very, very cool. That is some extraordinary artwork by Russell Hawley. Really tells a story. Pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. Yeah. There you go. Hike the earth. Yep. Yeah. And then, holy cow, up there, and a big old pectoral girdle and forelimbs. Some kind of giant marine reptile. I'm guessing that's a big short-necked plesiosaur or something. And, yeah. Oh, excuse me. Take a look at that. Yeah. So we've got casts of the humeri, and then the hands, basically. And then they're carved out of foam are the, the coracoids and the, scapulae? Not sure what those are. Is it scapula and coracoid? Not familiar enough with the osteology of those critters. Here's the kids' area. Pretty neat. And then let's take a look at those pterosaurs, and then I think we'll wrap up with our triceratops here, whom they're calling torosaurs, and that's okay. Pterosaur tracks. The P is silent. I like that a lot. That's cool. So here's some models of some pterosaurs. They're walking along the ground. And so the cool thing about pterosaurs, we've talked about this many times before, but I like to repeat it in case anybody doesn't know. Pterosaurs are flying reptiles. Like this guy, they are not dinosaurs, but they live at the same time. They're about as close as you can get to being a dinosaur without being a dinosaur in terms of family tree. But their wings are not like those of birds, who are dinosaurs. They're not like those of bats. They're something totally different. So pterosaur has got, just like you, humerus, radius, and ulna. There's the long wrist bones and fingers. Most of the wing membrane, though, is made up of the fourth finger. That is their ring finger right here. That is hyper elongated. And those bones and that are like as thick as the humerus. Imagine if the bones in your ring finger were as thick as your humerus, as your upper arm bone. And imagine if your fourth finger were like 5 times longer than your body is. Then you would know what it's like to be a pterosaur. So yeah, here's the hand right here. So those are wrist bones going up to the phalanges, the fingers, and then right there is that fourth finger right there. It's so big it looks like another arm bone, but nope, that's the finger. So as the animals would be flying, that would be extended out to the side like this. And the wing membrane would stretch from about the ankle out to the tip of the wing there. But then when the animal is on the ground, those wings would fold up behind it, so these guys could still walk pretty decently on land too. It's cool stuff. Yeah. We've got some our lovely pterosaurs here, and there you can see you, Chad, there in the mirror. Very cool. And is it still called a phalanx when it's that big? Dark Apocalypse? It is, yeah. It's still called a phalanx. Yeah, usually the names of the bones don't really change if they're used for something different. Because it's still, homologous structures. They're still used. I mean, they're, still the same thing, just used for a different purpose. And here are some pterosaur trackways right here. This is so cool. So it was kind of a mystery for a long time. How did these guys actually move around on land? And footprint trackways allow us to actually tell how they did it. We don't have to speculate. When you look at stuff like this, you can see their gait, you can see the way that they hold their limbs, how far apart their limbs are from one another. Very cool. Yeah. So this is a cast of the footprints that first confirmed that pterosaurs were quadrupedal, walked on all fours, like bats, as opposed to bipedal, walking on 2 legs like birds. The tracks also indicate these pterosaurs had webbed feet. The original of this cast was instrumental in helping the scientific community determine that pterosaurs walked on all fours. And this is from Alcova, Wyoming. And this is a cast of the original. Very cool. Very, very cool. Neat stuff, yeah. Sometimes in fossil science, you know, we've got mysteries like that. We've got things that everybody's debating until a fossil pops up that just kind of solves it once and for all. Yeah, and that's a beautiful moment when that happens. It really is. Yeah, and they did lay eggs. Venus Tranquility, yeah, pterosaurs like this laid eggs. For a long time, we didn't have any fossil eggs from pterosaurs like this, and it turned out that, hey, it's because they laid soft-shelled eggs. We now have some eggs from pterosaurs, and they're soft-shelled, which means they're much more difficult to fossilize, which is why they turned out to be so rare. But yeah, like when I was a kid, we didn't have any pterosaur eggs from anywhere. Nowadays we do, and they're soft-shelled. Pretty cool. Now I think we'll wrap up right here after we take a look at this Triceratops. Now I was talking about how in paleontology sometimes we have big ongoing debates, and it might take the discovery of some new fossils in order to kind of solve that, you know? And this is a beautiful example of that, I guess. So this is a Triceratops skull, although the signage here doesn't say that. So we'll talk about this controversy. The sign calls it Torosaurus. There we go. So there's an ongoing debate right now about Torosaurus and Triceratops. Both of these dinosaurs are from the end of the Cretaceous period, from the Hell Creek Formation and the Lance Formation. I've dug up a whole bunch of Triceratops in my day, probably 20 or 30, with Museum of the Rockies, with the Badlands Dinosaur Museum, with other institutions in Montana. And I've gotten to know them pretty well in the field, at least. And at Museum of the Rockies, where I used to work, there's an idea put forth by some paleontologists there that Torosaurus and Triceratops, these two dinosaurs that have been long considered to be, you know, different genera, they might actually be the same critter. So here is a scale model of a Torosaurus skull. You see it's got those big holes up there, big fenestrae, in the parietal squamosal frill. So ceratopsian dinosaurs have got this big frill in the back, and in every ceratopsian dinosaur, except for Triceratops, they've got big holes in the frill, basically to save weight. So in life, those holes, the fenestrae, I think that's Latin or Greek for window, those fenestrae would have been covered by skin, maybe by keratin, so it wouldn't look like a hole in life. It's just much more lightweight because it doesn't have heavy bone on the inside. Because these frills get really enormous, they were used for display, we think, and they evolve really quickly. In different kinds of ceratopsian dinosaur, different genera and different species, they've all got different shaped frills. Now with Triceratops up there, you'll see the frill is solid. It doesn't have those fenestrae in the back, but it does get very, very, very thin toward the middle. And in a lot of specimens, maybe that one included, the original one, like the preparators and people who were like helping to preserve this thing and put it up on display, might help it out a little bit and kind of like, you know, fill in any gaps that might exist. Anyway, the point that I'm trying to make is that at Museum of the Rockies, people like John Scannella and Jack Horner and Denver Fowler and myself were convinced that Torosaurus and Triceratops are actually the same dinosaur. And that Triceratops, as it grows and matures, those holes develop later on in ontogeny. When the animal is like reaching full skeletal maturity, those holes start to develop. Because that's really the main difference between Triceratops and Torosaurus is, does it have holes in its frill? They're from the same time, they're from the same place. Skeletally, they seem to be identical. Really, the fenestrae, those holes in the frill, are like the only main difference. So yeah, this one seems to have those, but it's also got some other bizarre holes here too. Like on this side, it's got a hole opening up. So yeah. There's a lot of controversy. There's a lot of people who think that, oh no, they've got to be different because this one's got holes in the frill. You know, time will tell, I guess. Someday somebody will find, well, somebody's already found, it's just not published yet. We've got Triceratops with fenestrae in the frills. But who knows when or if that'll ever get published. But someday somebody's going to find a Triceratops that's got fenestrae like that, and that'll probably settle this whole thing once and for all. Yeah. And that will prove, basically, that, yeah, these are the same critter. So anyway, yeah. But yeah. Anyway, I think with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up this stream. I've got a lot of driving going to Colorado today. I'm going to be streaming from a very cool museum in Colorado tomorrow, so I hope you'll tune in for that. So let's go ahead and wrap this up. Again, this has been a tour of the Tate Geological Museum in Casper, Wyoming.
Dinosaurs lived a long
Let's go
time
outside
ago.
and I'll wrap it
They
up
were
there.
terrible lizards, don't you know?
We'll go out by the
Thank you for the
T-Rex
visit, teacher Danny.
past this big old man. Alright. Oh, and I gotta grab some of these before I leave too. When I was here last time it was out of order, but it's been fixed. Yeah. Again, this is inside an academic building here in Casper College, Casper, Wyoming.
Wreaking his prehistoric fury
There are
on
classrooms
modern
all down
man
there.
and his puny machine.
All around here. Cool stuff.
In all the world, there
Again,
are fewer
if,
than 40 full-time dinosaur paleontologists. 3 of them are leading this expedition.
If any of you ever get the chance to visit, if you're ever in this
Executive
part of the
Storm
world,
just gifted 5
moving
subs.
through eastern or central
This is Laura
Wyoming,
Dern of
make sure
Jurassic
that you
Park.
stop
Digging up dinosaurs is hard,
at Casper
frustrating
College
work.
and visit
It
the
takes
Tate
months
Museum.
or years,
This is a
so leave it to
wonderful
the
place. This is a
professionals.
museum that punches well above its weight. And shoot, something I didn't even talk about is that they have a T-Rex here. When I was visiting last time, Russell Hawley and JP, the big head honcho paleontologist, they were here. They're not here today, unfortunately, or we'd be talking to them. But yeah, they took me behind the scenes. I got to see the collections area and the prep lab space, and then JP took me to a building that's just over there. They've got a great big Tyrannosaurus skeleton, and that is incredible. It's most of the postcrania, so they don't have a skull, but they've got the rib cage, they've got dorsal vertebrae, they've got limbs. It is an exquisite specimen, and I think it's the only T-Rex found in Wyoming that is still in Wyoming at this point, or maybe the only one that's in a public collections. You know, not in private hands, locked away from the public. And right now, it looks like they're trying to raise funds in order to build a new building to put this thing on display. It is super, super cool, and I really wish them best of luck with this. So yeah, everybody watching at home right now, if you ever get a chance to visit the Tate Museum here, you definitely should. I'm going to support the museum by buying some stuff from the gift shop and using the press penny machine, maybe making a donation. But yeah, if you would like to contribute to this institution and the ongoing work here, and try and help them get a proper home for their wonderful T-Rex specimen, consider donating to the museum. Go to the website, just search Tate Geological Museum, or Tate Museum, Wyoming, and see if you can find the donation tab on their website. Send them a few bucks. I'm sure they'd really appreciate it. This is a wonderful institution, and I don't know, I love small museums like this that punch above their weight. This is that's so cool. It makes me so happy. Anyway, everybody, I hope you had a wonderful time watching today. Thank you for your questions and everything else. And let's find somebody to raid here. Then I'll go back in there, maybe get myself a t-shirt and those pressed pennies. So let's see who's live on Twitch right now. Let's see. Oh, kind of slim pickings right now. So let's go ahead and check out California Burbs. We'll go raid them. And it's just starting to rain here, so I gotta wrap this up so my equipment doesn't get wet. Here we go. Okay, come on now. Raid California Burbs. There we go. Excellent. Well, everybody, again, thank you for watching Paleontologizing today. Hope you enjoyed this visit as much as I did. I hope you learned something too, like I did. That thing about marine crocodiles surviving the KPG extinction kind of blew me away. So yeah, visit this place if you ever get the chance. See if you can support them if you're in a position to do so. Yeah, anyway, thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your enthusiasm. Thank you for your financial support. Couldn't do this without you. And thank you, moderators, for your hard work. I appreciate you. I'll be streaming tomorrow from a museum in Colorado, so tune in for that. It's going to be pretty impressive, I'm told. Very excited about that. It's going to be a cool one. So until then, everybody, you take care, and yeah, let's go ahead and check out California Burbs. All right, bye-bye, everybody. See ya.